Good morning, everyone. Let's make sure we got everything going the way it's supposed to be going over here. Just making sure LinkedIn is good. Let's see, what's this? No. Some things I'm looking for on TikTok that are not showing up. They're showing up when I'm doing it. I was just doing a test broadcast a few minutes ago. It was coming up. Now it's not coming up. I don't know what the problem is. Please like the live as we begin here. You can at least do that. You can like the live. Let me see if I can get a pinned comment in here because this wasn't working the other day either. Let's test it. This is still giving me trouble. Please like the live over on, what did I just do? All right, let me see if I can pin that. And pin. Okay, now it's letting me pin my own comment. It wasn't doing that before. All right, so at least we got that part fixed. I can pin my own comments. It's still not doing all the other stuff that I wanted to do. But make sure you like the live over on TikTok, Instagram. Good morning. As y'all are coming in, all y'all can check in. Let me know where you're checking in from. We are good on Facebook. We are good on Rumble Studio, also YouTube and X and LinkedIn. I was going to go live straight to YouTube today, but YouTube was giving me some trouble. I don't know why YouTube keeps giving me trouble when I try to use the live, even on different channels. I'm still getting issues with them. But all that aside, we are going to get into the topic here today and proceed to give you what you need on this subject. The topic here today, we're going to talk about greedflation. This is a new term that I never heard of before. I don't know if it's even an official word. Actually, it kind of is because I went and did some research on this that led to what we're going to talk about here today, this whole concept of greedflation, where people are complaining about inflation, they're complaining about the increased cost of just life in general, and who is to blame for it, because, politics demand that somebody be blamed for everything that goes wrong. We got Tuscaloosa, Alabama in the house. What's going on? Good morning. And I'm looking over on TikTok and my comments pinned again. I don't know if I did that or it just stays up there. I want it to stay up there, but I don't think there's a way on TikTok to keep it up there. Nikki, good morning. Good morning. Carla, Indiana. Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to China H. Good morning. I don't know if there's a way to just keep the comment up there. I don't see a way to do that. But make sure y'all are liking the live over on TikTok. I finally remembered this morning to tell y'all to like the live. Oh, you did it again. Thank you, Carla. So let's just make sure that we keep liking the live. We need to be at, by the time I get to the comment section and the Q&A, we need to be at 50,000, folks. That's the new target. We need to be at 50,000 likes by the time I finish the content, and then we're going to get into the comments. 50,000 likes so we can get to the comment section. Again, 50,000 likes. We're at 1.5K. All you got to do is tap the screen to produce the like. So if you like what I'm sharing here, even if you don't like it, but it is getting your attention and getting you to respond, you should still like it. Like it even if you hate everything I'm saying here today. What we're going to talk about is greedflation. And greedflation, this is what I found out about greedflation, is a new term, as far as I have seen, that is used to describe a situation where companies use inflation as a cover to raise prices far beyond what's necessary to cover their own rising costs. In other words, if a company's rising costs, the company has increased costs, which means they need to increase prices in order to stay afloat in their business. They raise the prices more than the increased costs are forcing them to raise prices. So I'm usually selling your product for $1, but my increased cost means I got to sell the product for $2. I instead sell the product for $3. So, and then I just use inflation or my increased cost as an excuse. Hey, customers, we had to raise our prices. So instead of $1, now it's $2, or instead of $1, it's $3. Even though my increased cost only required me to charge $2, I'm basically skimming off the top, metaphorically speaking, by charging you a little bit more than I even need to, given the situation. Please keep liking the stream over on TikTok so we can get to 50,000 before I get through this material. So basically, companies are using the excuse of inflation to boost their profit margins without telling you what they're actually doing. This is the claim that a lot of people are making. This is where this concept comes from. So while inflation does cause genuine increases in expenses, like your staff costs more money, your materials may cost more money, your logistics cost more money, greedflation, according to the people who have come up with this term, what it does is it points that corporations are seizing the moment to fatten their profits by, again, overcharging based on increased costs, knowing that the average person will assume that it's just inflation. So this is when I have talked about this in the past. I've talked about increased costs always going up. Some people would say that I am just taking the word of the corporations that is just inflation. I am not. I'll get into exactly where I come from on this topic in a minute. But this whole tactic, those who believe that this is a real thing, what we're discussing here, is this a real thing? It exploits public confusion and it results in record profits for corporations during times when regular people are struggling with affordability. So I'm sure there are some people listening to this right now who you've been looking at the prices when you go to the grocery store or you go to Target, or just increased costs of things that you normally spend money on. And you're like, man, these prices are going up way more than they should be going up, or they're just going up way more than I am comfortable with them going up. And I got to figure out how to make ends meet and make this work. But then you look online or you read some article and you see that XYZ company has just recorded record profits and they made all this money. And you're like, oh, this is not adding up. How are they making all this money on us off of our backs of the customers when at the same time the prices are going up? People can afford less, but they seem to be doing better and better. This is where this gap between the rich and the poor continues to grow. And people always are talking about the wealth gap, and they're talking about these billionaire companies and the billionaire owners who own these companies, that they are simply exploiting the population by raising their prices and making themselves more money because they can get away with it. And what is supposed to happen about all of this? That's the discussion here today. And we're going to get into all of that momentarily. Let me first introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm author of 41 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks, and I own this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated, where we work with entrepreneurs on systematizing and scaling your businesses using the tools to help athletes get to the top of the sports world. We have created a system that translates those tools from the sports game to the business game. You can learn more about that by going to the link in my profile or the link in my bio, wherever you are watching this. There's a link there. Click on that link. You'll see more information about working with us and about our programs, what we do, how we do it, etc. So let's get into this topic here. So the example that I wanted to use for this, because I saw someone post this online maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago on X. That's the only app, by the way. The only social media app where I do active engagement is I read you all's comments when I do these live streams. And then the only other place is on X. Throughout the course of the day, I'll jump on X a couple times and I'll just engage with people's random stuff. Only app where I scroll and look at anybody else's shit is on X. I don't look at anybody else's stuff on any other platform. So even if I happen to be following you on an app, don't expect to see me liking your posts because I don't like nobody's shit. I don't look at anybody else's stuff on social media. But anyway, McDonald's was the example that was used here. It said McDonald's raised prices on their core menu options by more than 100% over the last 6 years, while at the same time, they have reported billions of dollars in profits. And some people say that is clear evidence that inflation alone is not the reason. And I'm just looking at that. Let me just say that statement again. And that doesn't quite add up to me. That's a non sequitur. Those 2 points don't connect. So they said McDonald's raised their prices on their items by over 100% since 2019, while at the same time, they've reported billions of dollars in profits. And what some people say is that is clear evidence that inflation alone is not the reason for the raising of the prices. No, that doesn't quite make sense. That doesn't make logical sense. I'm just saying it to myself twice because I'm trying to ask myself if that passes the smell test. That doesn't make sense. Just because McDonald's recorded billions of dollars in profits doesn't mean that the raising of their prices is necessarily not due to inflation. They may have also raised them a little bit more simply because they wanted to raise their prices. So is that clear evidence? I don't know if that's clear evidence because they could have been making billions of dollars in profits before that. How much money were they making before 2019? Without that information, we don't quite know. See, this is one of the ways that you can lie to people with statistics, if you all pay attention. Lying with statistics is a very common thing to do, especially these days when it's very easy for any of us to Google or AI or chat GPT information. We can find raw data and raw facts. And the thing about raw data and raw factual information, folks, is that depending on the way that you parse the data, in other words, which pieces of data you look at, and depending on which pieces of data you choose to present, you could very easily paint a picture of pretty much anything, depending on the way that you slice and dice the information. This is why none of you should be, I've said this a million times here over the last several months, none of you should ever be running around saying that you have quote unquote facts or quote unquote the facts. Facts don't matter nearly as much as they used to. This is one of many reasons why facts don't matter as much, because it's very easy to lie to people with facts. You can tell any story you want if you take a factual piece of information out of full context. And on top of that, a lot of human beings do not have the ability. They don't have the intellectual capability of understanding when you are doing that and misleading them on purpose. They don't even know that you're doing it because they don't know what to look for. One of the keys to intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, is not that you have consumed a whole bunch of knowledge, i.e. you went to college, you got a degree, you read a book. None of those make you intelligent. What makes you intelligent is knowing which information you need, knowing which information to look for when you're looking for it, then knowing that you found it, and then knowing how to apply it. That's what makes you intelligent. And one of the ways that people lie with statistics, or one of the reasons that people lie with statistics, because they're talking to a bunch of people who don't have the intelligence to understand that they're being misled when they are indeed being misled. So this very first point here that people say, well, McDonald's raised their prices so much since 2019. That is a fact. And McDonald's made a whole bunch of money since 2019. That is also a fact. But that does not mean that McDonald's is just trying to stiff the customers by raising their prices more than they, quote unquote, need to. First of all, it is subjective to say how much McDonald's needs to raise their prices. Technically, McDonald's can charge whatever they want to charge. If McDonald's wants to charge you $100 for a cheeseburger, they can do it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to buy it. But if they decide they want to charge $100 for a cheeseburger, that is their right because it's their business. They can do whatever they want to do. And you also have the right to not buy it because it's your money. You can do what you want to do. But to say that McDonald's is somehow doing something wrong because they're raising their prices more than maybe you or someone else may be comfortable with is a nonsense argument because they do not necessarily owe you to keep their prices within a certain range. This goes to a wider conversation about what they call corporate social responsibility, which is something that I've discussed on my podcast. My podcast is called Work on Your Game. It comes out every single day. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. Click the link in my profile. You'll see more information about all of this stuff. So you don't have to remember any of these places. And thank you for keeping that link pinned over there on moderators on TikTok. So this whole idea that a company is making billions of dollars in profit, or a person is making millions or billions of dollars when they are running a business, and that being reflective of them doing something necessarily wrong, just because the person who sees the fact may feel like you're not doing well financially. This concept is as old as this concept has been going around since before any of us were even alive, that whoever has the most, they somehow, some way are responsible for people who have less. And if you keep getting more and more and more, and other people continually have less, that means you must be actively doing something wrong to hold back or suppress the people who have less stuff. And this idea, again, is not new. This idea actually goes back almost over 250 years. So I'm right now, one of the books that I'm currently reading right now is the story of Benjamin Franklin. Now, it's not his autobiography. It's actually a biography written by this guy named Walter Isaacson, who writes really good in-depth books on individual people. So I read his book on Steve Jobs. I have his book on Elon Musk. I didn't read yet. And I'm reading the Ben Franklin book right now. These books are very long. So in this book, Ben Franklin is a person. Y'all know who Benjamin Franklin is, right? He was one of the founding fathers of the country. He never was an actual politician, but his name and face are on the $100 bill because of the significance of his contributions to the United States. And one of the things that Ben Franklin often talked about was that the proprietors, those are the people who owned a bunch of stuff, they were responsible, socially responsible, to make sure they're paying their fair share in taxes and giving back to the community to make sure the community stays strong and stays whole. And generally, I agree with Ben Franklin's idea for the time in which he was saying it. This is in the 1700s. Ben Franklin was around when America became America, which was in 1776. So that's why I say this is going back 200 plus years. This was a good idea back then when the money that came from taxes or the money that came from people who had a lot of money was actually going to strengthen the overall community. It supported the lower level people, maybe the shopkeepers and the everyday workers and maybe even the poor. And there was a healthy system that made it all work. The problem that we have today in 2025 is when Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or Kamala Harris or AOC comes up and says the billionaires and the rich people need to pay their fair share in taxes. They're using the same concept for the same reason. The problem is the system is not working the same way. A lot of the money that comes out of the pockets, let's say you tax a billionaire $1 million. Out of that $1 million, a lot of that money never makes its way to the everyday person who's making $45,000 a year. The money never gets there. That's why this whole concept of trickle down economics, again, logically sounds good when you just look at it in black and white on paper. But in action, in practice, it does not actually happen that way because the money going through all the hands that it needs to pass through, everybody's taking their little piece. By the time it gets down to the person making $45,000 a year, there's no money left. And this is the reason why you see people like, I remember Donald Trump when he was debating with Hillary in 2016 for his first election. Hillary kept hammering the point that Donald Trump did not pay anything in federal income taxes. And Donald Trump said, that's smart. He said, it's smart. You shouldn't want to pay anything in taxes. You want to keep all your money. And there was a time back in Ben Franklin's time when you will be frowned upon for doing that. But these days, because of the way the system works, it doesn't make any sense to pay money into taxes because where's it going? Where's it going? If you don't like the public services that are being delivered, why would you want to give more money to it? And secondly, the money's not going to go to the people who it's allegedly supposed to help anyway. So this is the reason why, and this is one of my challenges with greedflation, but we shall continue. I'm not done. Next point is this. Food and labor costs have gone up. This is what business owners will say. The labor costs have gone up. The price of goods have gone up. So in the food business, they're saying the cost of getting the burgers or whatever it is that McDonald's selling. I don't know if that's an actual burger, but whatever it is. Those costs have gone up. So some price increase is warranted so that we can stay afloat and so that we can keep our workers paid. On top of this reality that all of you need to understand about business is that when you run or own a business, it is your responsibility to make money. It's your responsibility to make a profit. Responsibility of a business is to turn a profit. It is to make the shareholders of the business more financially wealthy, i.e. making money, which means we're going to charge enough that not only it covers our costs, but enough that we turn a profit. All right. This is why you have not-for-profit organizations who allegedly, ostensibly, they only charge you enough to cover their costs so that they're allegedly breaking even. And then you have for-profit businesses who are looking to make money, which means I'm not going to charge you just what it costs. For Apple to make an iPhone, how much is the current iPhone? The latest iPhone, I think the last I was looking at it, I need to get a new iPhone. Maybe I'll get one. Maybe I'll wait till the next one comes out. So what iPhone are we on now? Is it the iPhone 17? Is that out yet? So I'm looking on Apple's website. So right now they have the iPhone 16. So iPhone 16, I'm guessing the iPhone 17 is coming later on this year. So let's look at the iPhone 16 Pro. If I got a new phone today, this is the one I would get. Not the Max. The Max is too big. But I would get the Pro. And let's see how much this costs. iPhone 16 Pro costs. All right, I need the biggest one with the Pro starts at $1,000, and then if you get, so now they got 1 terabyte of storage space. That's what I need. So I would go with that one. That costs $1,499. So Apple's iPhone, the Pro with the maximum storage costs $1,500. Is that their cost to make the phone? No, their cost is less than that. Their cost is probably significantly less than that, especially with the economies of scale that Apple has. The reason that they charge you $1,500, even though it may only cost them $500, let's say, to make the phone, is that they want to make that $1,000 profit on every sale. Now, why does that matter to them? Because they're a for-profit business, and the people running the business, they took on a financial risk in starting the business. Therefore, they get to participate in the upside when the business is working. If the business doesn't work, they lose all their money. That's the way it works. All right, that's the way it works in business. And that is the risk that you take when you jump into entrepreneurship. And it's another reason why, I've said this before, not everybody should be an entrepreneur. Because to be an entrepreneur, you need two physical attributes. And I say this as a metaphor. Number one, you have to have a very strong stomach because of the ups and downs and the risks that are inherent in being an entrepreneur. And also, you got to have some balls. You got to have some big balls. And again, I'm saying this metaphorically. This applies to the women as well as to the men, because you got to be willing to put yourself out there and say, I have something that's better than what's currently in the marketplace, and here's how much you got to pay to get it. And knowing that you're taking a risk that this might not work, and you might lose your shirt, as they say, in the process. Definition of an entrepreneur is someone who runs or starts a business enterprise while taking on greater than normal financial risk. That's the reason why they get to participate in the upside and in the rewards. And while we're on that subject, a lot of people talk about, speaking of workers, they say, well, these guys who work at this company or that company, they got this type of bonus. They got this much of a bonus this year for being the CEO or the owner of the company. But the workers who work there, they're only making $40,000 a year. This person's only making $60,000. These people can barely pay their bills. How is it that the owners or the shareholders or the CEO is making all this money, but the people who work there are not making nearly as much? Why is the owner getting a bonus and getting a raise, whereas the regular worker is not getting a raise at the same time? Well, that's somewhat of a legitimate question if you don't understand what you don't understand. But I'm going to answer the question because it's actually a bad question if you knew what I'm about to tell you, which is when you run or start a business enterprise, you are the one taking on the risk. The entrepreneur is the one taking on the risk, which means because I took on the risk and got in on the ground floor when there was no guarantee there would be any money to be made. Therefore, I get to participate in the majority of the upside when there is money being made. Because where were you when there was no guarantee that this business was going to make any money, Mr. Employee, Mr. Maintenance Man? You weren't around. You were working somewhere where the money was already guaranteed. Now the money's guaranteed to be coming in here. Now you have a job because now you know every 2 weeks you're going to get that paycheck, but you didn't put any risk on the table. You didn't put any money on the table when there was no chance. All right, there's a song by Drake and Future. It's called Where You At? And what's the whole song? Where your ass was at. All right, where were you? All right, you weren't shooting with me in the gym. Where were you when we were recording in the bathroom? All right, you weren't around. All right, Drake says that on the song. So those of you who ever get this idea that the employees who work at some big company that's making billions of dollars in profits, they're somehow, some way owed more money just because the company is making more money. No, they're not. You're not owed more money. Again, how much money did you put on the table when there was no guarantee we were going to make money? And the answer is zero. Okay, then you're not owed anything extra. You're owed whatever you agreed to, which is your salary or your hourly pay. That's it. If a company decides to give you more because out of the kindness of their hearts, or they just feel like they should or want to, then fine. But it's not. They are not obligated to give it to you, and you are not entitled to it. That's not a right. It's a privilege. That's the way it works in business. Now, any of you want to be in a position where all the upside goes to you, then you got to be involved when there's a possibility of a whole lot of downside. Speaking of Benjamin Franklin, the founding fathers of this country, when they decided to separate from the crown of England, they were risking their lives. If they had lost, if the Revolutionary War had gone the wrong way, all those guys would have been hanged or sent to the guillotine for even standing up and saying, I'm standing on this, that we want to separate from this country to the other country. That's the reason why anyone coming with this concept of we should tear down their statues or we should remove their names from schools and remove their names from streets. Those men put their lives on the line to make America, America. They took a huge risk because had that not worked, all of them would have had their heads chopped off. Like literally had their heads chopped off just for standing on the wrong side of a situation that was not guaranteed to work out. Because the Crown of England had a lot more power, organization, and resources than the colonies that became United States of America at the time that those, I believe it was 26 of them, signed that declaration and said, this is what we're going to do. Right? And all those guys whose names you know now, John Adams, Samuel Adams, George Washington, Ben Franklin, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, all of those men, they took a huge risk. I'm telling you that to say that's the same thing that an entrepreneur does. They're not risking their life, but they're risking their money. And if you weren't around when the big risk was being made, then you have no claims to demanding something when the risk is over and now everything seems to be working. Now it's sunny outside. Where were you when it was storming? So continuing. Apple continues to increase the price. And I'm going to take questions and comments at the end, by the way. So if you have some, just stay tuned. By the way, on TikTok, we need to get to 50,000 likes by the time I get through this content. I got about 29 minutes on my clock to keep going with content. If y'all are on TikTok, I need 50,000 likes on this. Even if you disagree with what I'm saying, I need 50,000 likes on TikTok before we get to the comment section. Apple continues to increase the price of phones. I just use them as an example. AirPods and accessories. We know that any of you buys Apple products, which is most of you, stuff keeps costing more money. The last time I got an iPhone, I'm still using my main iPhone right now is the 13. I haven't gotten any new iPhone because this one still works pretty well. What I've found, my experiences though, when you get a new iPhone, you realize how much faster it is than the one that you just had. You don't even realize that the one you have is starting to get slow until you get a new one. Then you realize how fast the new one is. So when I get the iPhone 16, or it's May, I don't know. Should I wait for the iPhone 17? When's the iPhone 17 coming out? Anybody know? Let me see if ChatGPT can tell me when the iPhone 17 is coming up. Maybe I'll wait. When does the iPhone 17 come out? Maybe I'll wait on the iPhone 17. So I'm getting September. Oh, it's May? All right, I might wait till September. So what's that, about 4 months? Okay, so the iPhone 17 is anticipated to be announced on September 9th, with pre-orders likely opening September 12th, official release expected September 19th. So what we got, June, July. All right, so I'm waiting for the iPhone 17. So I'll be 4 iPhones out when the iPhone 17 comes out. So I got to save up $1,500 so I can buy the phone. So Apple's profit margins remain some of the highest in the tech industry. This is an argument on greedflation, that they keep increasing the prices of their stuff and their profits margin remains some of the highest in the tech industry. Well, so what? I just explained this to you. When you run a business, you should be having high profit margins. That's the very point. The very point of running a business is you have profit margins. If you're not making any profit, what are you doing? You need to fix something if you're not making a profit in a business. So Apple They keep increasing the prices of their stuff. That's probably because partially the prices of making the phone and the accessories continue to go up, while at the same time, the staff, the people who work there, they need more money. So the cost of labor continues to go up. Just the cost of operating in general goes up. And they also want to keep making money. So as those costs go up, their prices go up. And as they continue to offer something valuable to their audience, they can increase the price, because if the audience is willing to pay $1,000 for a phone, maybe they'll pay $1,200 for a phone. Maybe they'll pay $1,400 for a phone. Maybe they'll pay $1,500 for a phone. The iPhone 25 is going to be $2,000, guaranteed. Why? Because people are willing to pay for it. And if you're providing value, you deserve to be paid commensurate with the value that you're offering and the value and the price that the market is willing to bear. First law of economics is supply and demand. So if there is a demand for something and you're willing to supply it, then the sweet spot is finding out how much the market will bear and pay in exchange for that thing that you're willing to supply. This is the way business works. And this is something that I've been telling people forever. I did a whole live stream and I've done some episodes of my podcast talking about this concept that the middle class is slowly shrinking in the United States of America, and the shrinkage is going to speed up. And the only option you're going to have is either be poor or be rich. That's what's going to happen in the United States, the way things are going. Now, the way, if you let Bernie Sanders tell it, he can fix it, I don't think he's going to fix it. Now, he's been preaching about it for 30 years. He has yet to fix it. What I predict is that the middle class is going to shrink more and more and more, and you're either going to be rich or you're going to be poor, because these costs are going to keep going up. The cost of life is always increasing, ladies and gentlemen. All right, whether we had an Elon Musk, Bill Gates, an Apple, and McDonald's, if none of these companies ever existed, Donald Trump, if none of these companies or these people ever existed and you didn't know their names, the cost of life would still be going up at all times. It always increases. Now, ask your great grandmother or your grandma, if they're still alive, how much it cost to go to the movies when she was 17. All right, they'll tell you it was like $1, or maybe even less than that, depending on how old your grandparents are. Now, how much does it cost to go to the movies now? I don't know. I don't go to movies, but I would guess if you, your spouse, and a child went to the movies, you're probably spending $100. Somebody tell me, I got that. Is that about right? 2 adults and a child going to the movies, between the tickets, the concessions, and let's say the tickets and the concessions. And if you go to one of those movie theaters where they serve you a meal, how much money do you spend at the movies? How much money are you spending at the movies for 3 people to go to the movies? Anybody who goes to the movies, how much you're spending? Joe Byron says about $60 to $75. So that's a lot more than $1, right? And depending on where you go, again, if you go to one of those places where they serve you food, there's a place in a couple places in South Florida where they'll serve you a meal. You can order like a burger and fries and dessert and all that stuff. You're spending $200 at the movies with just 2 people, 2 adults. And trust the system said people still go to the movies. Yes, from what I hear, people still go to the movies. I see movie theaters, so somebody's going in there. If nobody was going, then they wouldn't still exist. So yes, people are still going to the movies. I don't go, but a lot of people do. Point is, folks, costs are always going up. And when you understand that costs are always going up, here is your mandate. Here's your responsibility. Your value in the marketplace must increase at the same rate, if not faster, than the increase in costs. Because if it doesn't, then that means you are slowly going further and further underwater. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? So if you're making this much money and your costs are this much, then you're good. You got a little bit of a space right there, right? You got a little bit of breathing room. But if costs, and then your increase goes to this much, but then costs go to this much, you still have breathing room, but less breathing room. And then if your increase goes to this much, your value goes to this much, but costs go up to right here, now you're breaking even and maybe even losing. And if your increase goes this much, but costs go up this much, now you're in a troubled situation to the point that you may be dependent on the government. You don't want to be there. This is why your value must increasingly go up. This is the reason why my company and my brand is called Work on Your Game, because this is a consistent mandate that your game, your value, and the value of whatever it is that you have or own must consistently increase to keep up with the increase in cost of just being a human being. Now, life itself is a business. Whether you are a business owner yourself or not, you as a person is a business. It costs money to be born. And if you ever had a baby in the hospital, you can't leave the hospital until you pay the bill, right? So it costs money to be born. And any of you who's ever paid for a funeral, you understand it costs money to die, and everything in between costs money. So all of life is a business. So you are you incorporated. Right? So even if you have a job, you incorporated. You are a business, and your value must continually increase in the marketplace. The marketplace is simply the people who may be willing to give you money in exchange for what you're bringing to the table, you or your family or whatever entity you're a part of. So Apple, the defense of Apple is that a company like them, they invest billions of dollars every year into research and development. In other words, research and development, also known as R&D in business. This is the stuff that businesses do to learn more about us, the customers, learn more about our needs, our tastes, and to place bets on what will they want next and how do we create it so that by the time they're asking for it, we have it. Our Apple invests billions of dollars into that. This is the reason that they came up with, or this is how they came up with something like the iPod and then the iPad and then the AirPods and the iPhone. Nobody was asking for the iPhone, but they invested so much into research and development that they figured out, along with a genius by the name of Steve Jobs, that this might be what people want. But again, this was a bet. What if people didn't want the iPhone? What would have happened? All right, to the people who placed the bet on the iPhone, they would have lost a whole bunch of money. Now, again, the staff who work at Apple now, yeah, you could say you want more money now, but how much money did you risk back then when they were risking everything? None. You weren't around. Okay, where were you? Were you there shooting in the gym? So this is the way it works in business, and people need to understand this. And since a lot of people are not entrepreneurs, and a lot of people tend to buy into anything that is sold to them by a politician who tells you that is not your fault, it is because of these bad guys over here. Just follow me, and I will solve your problem. Understand, this is one of the oldest marketing tricks in the book. Okay, this is called the opportunity switch. It's also just called not your fault. It's the removal of responsibility. This works in marketing. So understand what I'm telling you right here. I'm actually going against the grain of how traditional marketing, and traditional marketing does not mean old. Traditional just means it's been around and it works. It still works to this very day. Think about this anytime you hear somebody selling something. They are always going to give you some form of, and this is just marketing game I'm giving you all right here. You always want to offer people an opportunity switch. An opportunity switch is in opposed to what they call an improvement offer. So an improvement offer is saying, you're already doing these things over here. Let me show you how to do it better. All right. And why don't you want to sell an improvement offer? The reason improvement offers don't work is because you are subconsciously telling your audience that I'm going to take what you're already doing, the effort that you're already giving, and I'm going to show you how to give that effort better, how to work harder, how to be smarter, how to wake up earlier, how to stay later. In other words, I'm going to tell you how to give your effort in a different way, but you're still going to be given effort. That doesn't work because most human beings are lazy. So if you ever sell someone an improvement offer, you're not going to make as many sales as you could because most people don't want to hear about working harder. All right, working harder is not an aspiration. Most people don't wake up in the morning and say, how do I work harder? They wake up in the morning and say, how can I do something different that will change my whole situation without a change in effort? That's what most people are looking for subconsciously, even though most people won't say that out loud. So to fulfill that subconscious desire, what you do is you offer people what we call a new opportunity. I'll give you an example of this in a second. So a new opportunity means you want to show people that whatever they've been doing is completely wrong. It's the wrong idea. What you need to do instead is come all the way over here to the other side of town. I'm going to show you a brand new way of doing things, and that's going to solve all your problems. That's the way you sell things. And next time you see an ad on social media, next time you see a commercial on TV, next time you go to somebody's landing page or their website and they're offering you something, they are going to show you some form of a new opportunity. And I'm saying this as a marketer myself. I sell new opportunities. Why does this work as opposed to the improvement offer? The reason it works is because when you offer someone a new opportunity, you are removing all accountability and responsibility from them. So if I tell you, let's say, for example, let's say I'm selling a diet program. All right, think of all the diet programs you heard of over the years. Give me some of their names. So we had the South Beach diet. You remember that one? You got the low carb diet. You got the no carb diet. You got the keto diet. You got the, what's the other ones? The Atkins diet. You got Weight Watchers. You had Jenny Craig. What's the other diets out there? Name all the diets y'all know about. So the Atkins, South Beach diet, no carb diet. What's the other one? No fat diet. People still do that one. You got all these different kinds of diets, right? Carnivore diet. You got all these different types of diets. Let's say I came out with the new diet. I came out with the Dre diet. All right, so that's the new diet that I'm gonna come out with. Here's the thing: if I want to sell that diet, what I'm going to do is I'm going the paleo diet. So I'm going to, some of these are lifestyles. Some of them people just do as a lifestyle. That's different. I'm talking about the diets. So some of these that you all have mentioned are lifestyles, or people just live the carnivore eating lifestyle. Who was I talking to? I was at a conference like 2 months ago, and the guy was talking about Man, it was Steve Larson. He was saying he's doing what's the one where you just eat meat? Is that carnivore? Yeah, I think it was carnivore. He was saying, yeah, I'm going carnivore now because we were at this business conference and we were at the lunch. And of course they serve you a lunch and there's a full course meal. So there's a starch, there's a vegetable, and there's some meat. And he was looking at it like, yeah, I'm just going carnivore. So I guess he was just going to eat the meat or just eat the chicken. And the thing is, that's more of a lifestyle. But the point is, let's say I came out with the Dre diet. If I really want to sell the Dre diet and I want as many people as possible to buy it, most important thing I had to do is tell you that whatever diet you've been doing, if you still haven't lost any weight, is not your fault. It's because the diet, something's wrong with the diet. I can't say something's wrong with you, but I gotta say something's wrong with the diet. See, the reason why you haven't lost weight, Mary, is because you're on that damn South Beach diet, and the South Beach diet doesn't work because A, B, C, and I give you all the reasons why the South Beach diet doesn't work. What you need to do instead is get on the Dre diet. And I'm gonna tell you why the Dre diet works. Let's say I call mine the West Palm Beach diet. So you're on the South Beach diet, that doesn't work. You need to get on the West Palm Beach diet. This one works because, and then I give you all the reasons why it works. But what am I asking you to do? I'm asking you to leave South Beach and come over to West Palm. That's going to change the whole situation. Now, this is, again, it's marketing. And now I'm going to give you some deeper marketing game. Generally speaking, this is bullshit. Generally speaking, it's bullshit. Now, why is it bullshit? It's bullshit and it's legitimate at the same time. So let me give you both sides. It's bullshit because the reason that anyone who's on a diet does not lose weight has nothing to do with the diet. Because all of you on a basic level understand how to lose weight if you really wanted to lose weight. You need to watch what you're putting in your body, i.e. what you eat and what you drink. And then you need to do some physical movement or more physical movement than you're currently doing. It is scientifically proven that if you are burning more calories than you are consuming, you will lose weight. That's a guarantee. All right, this is just simple biology, science. All right, those of you want to follow the science, here's some science for you to follow. If you burn more calories than you consume, you will lose weight. That is a guarantee. Now, it doesn't matter if you're on the Atkins diet, the South Beach diet, my West Palm Beach diet, the carnivore diet, the pescatarian diet, the Jenny Craig diet, or the Weight Watchers diet. If you burn more calories than you consume, you will lose weight. That's a guarantee. There's a diet for you right there. All right, any of you want to lose weight, that's all you got to do. Now, why then, if that's so true, Dre, if you're so accurate, why do we have the South Beach diet, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, the Palm Beach diet, the Atkins diet, and all? Why do we have all these diets? Because people are fucking lazy. Okay, this is the reason why. The reason why these diets sell is because people are lazy. And anytime you offer anyone any form of excuse as to why they are in the situation that they're in, and you sell them a solution, quote unquote, to solving their problem that doesn't sound like they had to do any extra work, they will buy. So any of you want to become an entrepreneur, you need to understand what I just told you. This is generally how you sell things. That's generally how you sell things. You have to present people a new opportunity, something that's different than what they've been doing, because if you tell them to just actually follow the plan of what you're supposed to be doing. All right, so you're on the Atkins diet and you haven't lost any weight. Are you actually following the diet? Are you doing what the diet said? Here's the hidden secret, folks. Every diet works. Every diet works. Atkins, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, Palm Beach diet, South Beach diet, they all work. You know what doesn't work? People. I just told you, people are lazy. People don't work. Right? Every diet works. Every coaching program works. Right? Every book works. If people would actually do what they're told to do, and they would actually execute on the instructions, it would work, quote unquote, and produce the result. The only thing that doesn't work are people. This is the reason why a person can use all 10 different diets that are out there. And they're like, I tried all the diets and none of the diets worked. Well, no, all the diets work. You didn't work. And why do people buy the diet? Because it gives them hope and excitement that things might finally work out. Now, here's where it can actually work. Let's say you tried the Atkins diet and you tried the Jenny Craig and you tried Weight Watchers and you didn't lose any weight, but you're still trying to lose 30 pounds. And I sell you the new diet. I call it the West Palm Beach diet. Now, you might lose weight on the West Palm Beach diet, not because my diet is better than all those other diets, but because you got excited enough and I was able to motivate you enough for you to actually finally do what the fuck the diet tells you to do. Now, all of a sudden, miraculously, you lost 30 pounds and you give me the credit when it's not me that actually did it. It's you finally fucking doing what you're supposed to do. Now you lost weight. That's how it actually works. This is just a lesson in human nature, all right, that I'm giving you all because it fits perfectly into the topic that we're talking about here today. And Apple invests a whole bunch of money into development. And this is how they know what people want. And this is how people come up with new ideas for new products. I'm not saying everybody invests billions of dollars into research and development. But if you know your market, you know your audience, and you understand human nature, you can sell pretty much anything to anybody. Not anybody, but you can sell pretty much anything to a lot of people if you understand human nature. All right, this is the reason why these companies sell what they sell. This is the reason why they exist. And it's also the reason why companies go out of business, because they make bets and they lose. This is the game of entrepreneurship. All right, this is the Robert Kiyosaki called it the gong show. All right, every once in a while, somebody just gets hit on the head and they're gone. They're out of there. You remember Blockbuster Video? You remember Kmart? You remember Sears? You remember Strawbridge and Clothier? You remember some of these stores? Or where are they now? All right, they're out of business. Just because they're hot now does not mean they're going to be hot forever. So these stores that we know about now, Target, Walmart, Amazon, Apple, they're not going to be around forever just because they're around now. It seems like it, but no, they won't. Think of, depending on how old you are, you think back 30 years. What companies were out there that were the places that everybody went? Where are they now? A lot of them ain't around anymore, because this is the game of entrepreneurship. I'm saying all that to say this: because they take that risk, they get the upside. So just because they're making money doesn't mean they're doing something wrong. Retailers like Target and Walmart, they have raised prices across many categories. Then they posted better than expected earnings during an inflation stage. And this is where people are looking at it and saying, then you get your Bernie Sanders up and AOCs out there saying, well, look, these companies are posting more earnings than expected. They're quarterly, because these are public companies. They're posting more earnings than expected, even though inflation should have made them earn less money. How are they earning more money? This seems not fair. Now, again, you also got to remember, most human beings are, well, I told you most people are lazy. Most people are physically lazy. Most people are also intellectually lazy, meaning most people don't want to be challenged to think. If you give people something that requires them to think, they're probably not going to do it. Now, if you give people a really simple idea that they don't have to think about and they can just accept it because it feels good, they'll accept it. This is the reason why politics is politics. And every politician does this. Donald Trump does it expertly. Obama did it. Bernie Sanders does it. All politicians do it on an expert level. Kamala Harris tried to do it, but she failed because she wasn't smooth enough. And it's the reason why she didn't win. Whoever does it better is the one who wins every election. Whoever does a better job of getting simple ideas to a mass of people wins every election. You go back the last 30 years of elections, Clinton did it better. That's why he won. Then W. Bush did it better. Then Obama, then Trump, then Biden, and then Trump again. All right, that's pretty much how it works. You got to sell simple ideas to people. Anything that requires people to think, you're asking too much. All right, everybody understand where I'm at right now? Okay, so Target and Walmart, they raised prices and posted better than expected earnings. So then you get Bernie Sanders saying, well, that must mean they're doing something wrong. No, not true. But the reason why Bernie Sanders is as popular as he is because of what I just told you. When you give people a very simple concept that tethers to what they're already feeling emotionally, they will go along with it, even though logically it makes no sense. Because as soon as you tether to someone's emotions, logic goes out the window. And they don't logically think about it anyway. They just go along with it because it feels good. Again, this is why politicians are who they are. But other companies, these same companies, they face theft, wage hikes, shipping costs. Walmart and Target deal with a lot of this. People steal stuff from their stores that costs them money. They got to pay more to their staff, and they got lots of staff. They got shipping costs. They import a lot of stuff from different countries, and they have to balance profit against legitimate business pressures. I just told you, when you run the business, you're taking a big risk. Every day you're at risk when you run the business, because just because it made money yesterday does not mean it's going to make money today. Oil companies, these are companies that sell you gas. They posted record profits while gas prices have gone up, sparking accusations of price gouging amid global crises. So you heard Kamala talked about this a lot, that she's going to stop the price gouging of certain companies and their gouging prices. And there was a whole big debate around this whole concept. And again, whether it's logically true or not really doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because anyone who feels like their costs are too high for the amount of money they have, they are going to love that idea that this person is going to stop price gouging. And anyone who isn't feeling that way, they're going to reject the idea. Again, you got to keep it simple, folks. Oil, we know, is a volatile market, or maybe you don't know. Oil is a volatile market. The cost of oil are always fluctuating a lot. And it can be affected by any type of war, like conflicts between countries, especially one that has access to oil. There can be manipulation by big organizations and limiting refinement capacity. In other words, oil that's pulled out of the ground has to be refined. That costs something in order to make it good enough to go into your car. And some price shifts are more structural than they are about greed. And there's books of debate that can be had on all of this stuff. Fast food chains, going back to McDonald's, They say they hike their menu prices because of inflation. That's one of the claims that they make. But many of them are locked in long-term contracts that shield them from the worst of the cost spikes. In other words, McDonald's or a company like Walmart, you watch any documentaries on Walmart or read books on them, they are notorious for this, is that they start selling someone's product and you're making a whole bunch of sales specifically through Walmart. So let's just say I made up a widget, right? I created this new widget and I'm selling it through multiple channels. I'm selling it on Amazon. I'm selling it in Target. I'm selling it in Home Goods. I'm selling it on my own website, and I'm selling my product in Walmart. Now, here's what happens. Walmart will get my product to blow up. They just start selling so much of my product that 80% of my sales are coming directly from Walmart. And when 80% of my sales are coming from Walmart and I'm making a profit and I'm eating real good, I'm real happy, my product is selling really well in Walmart. Here's what Walmart does. They come to me and say, hey, Mr. Dre, we see you're making good sales over here. And they have an idea that the majority of your sales are coming from them. They know. They don't know for sure, but they have a pretty good idea. Here's what they do. They say, well, we need you to lower your price. So you're selling your widget for $5. We need you to sell your widget for $4. Now, you may say to me, well, Dre, that doesn't sound like too bad of a deal. They just lowering your price by 20% and only by $1. But you need to understand, if I'm running a big business, I got a bunch of staff, I got research and development, I have factory costs, I got manufacturing costs, all of these things, taxes that I got to pay. And now Walmart just said, and 80% of my sales are coming from Walmart. So they just said, we want you to take this place where you're making 80% of your sales, and we want you to only make 80% of the money. Do you see how that can have a trickle-down effect on my business? To the point that it's cutting significantly into my profits. So let's say I'm making $1 million a year in profit based on selling that product, and Walmart is a big part of that. Now they just cut my price by 20%. Now I'm not making $1 million anymore. Now I might only make $800,000. Let's just keep the numbers simple. I might only make $800,000, and other changes may require me to make even less than that. I might even make $500,000 because, again, Walmart's not my only place to sell, but they're doing the majority of the sales. And the more they come to me, and what does Walmart advertise? Everyday low prices. And how does Walmart have everyday low prices? Because they keep lowering their price. How does Walmart keep lowering their price? Do any of you have any idea how Walmart is always lowering prices? It's not magic. They lower their prices because they go to the people who are actually making the stuff that they sell, and they force them to lower their prices, even at the cost of that company no longer making money. But the company looks at it and says, well, damn, we don't like Walmart. We really want to tell Walmart, fuck you, and hang up the phone on them and pull our products off their shelves. The problem is 80% of our sales are coming from Walmart, so we have no choice but to do what they want us to do. And this is how Walmart starts strangling businesses. And again, there are documentaries that talk about this stuff in detail. This is what companies like Walmart do. Their everyday low prices is not out of the kindness of their hearts, and is not because they can do magic mathematically that a company like Target or Apple cannot do. All they do is strangle their suppliers to the point that the supplier has no choice but to either do whatever Walmart says, or you just got to go out of business. And then Walmart, here's what happens after that, in case y'all didn't know. Again, watch the documentaries. Walmart goes to the company. Let's say my company is now underwater. I'm losing money. Walmart knows that I'm losing money. They also know that my product is selling. And they also know I'm about to close off my business because I can't sell this anymore. And I'm kind of sort of maybe even letting them know, or they know, you know what Walmart does? You know what Walmart goes in and do? Those of you who are watching on TikTok, make sure you tap the screen. Can we get the 50,000 likes before I get to the Q&A, please? Anybody know what Walmart does when this is happening? So I'm selling my product. 80% of my sales are coming from Walmart, and they keep forcing me to lower my price to the point that I'm not making money anymore. And I'm about to go out of business, which means my product won't exist anymore. Walmart can't sell it. Do you know what Walmart does when they know I'm in that situation? Does any of you know what happens? I don't know if any of you know what happens. There it is. Renting Palm Beach just told you. Walmart comes in and tries to buy my company, and they'll just buy it out from under me. So they're the ones. So this is what they do. They make you somebody. Then they keep strangling you until you ain't making any money anymore. And then when you're about to go out of business, they just buy the company from you. So they basically steal your company right from underneath your feet. And you don't even realize that it happened. So if y'all want to know how Walmart has everyday low prices, now you know. Anyway, franchise owners operate on tight margins. People who own franchises, like Renting said, I worked for distribution for 24 years. They squeeze you. Yes, they constrict you. They're like boa constrictors. That's what Walmart does. They squeeze the life out of you till it ain't none left. And then when you got 1 ounce of life left, they buy it and then they revive the product, and now it's their product. That's how Walmart has the money that they have. And if you look on the Forbes list, if you want to believe it, those are estimates. But if you want to believe the Forbes list, there's like 7 people from the Walton family all on the Forbes list, all with the exact same amount of wealth. And it's because Walmart is Walmart. All started by Sam Walton. He wrote a book called Only in America. If y'all haven't read that book, y'all should read it. Sam Walton is the guy who started Walmart. He's dead now, but he wrote a book. Y'all should read that book. Now, he doesn't give you all these details, but Sam Walton was a predator in overalls. And you got to be if you're going to be a successful businessman. Anyway, so franchise owners operate on tight margins. So if you own a McDonald's franchise, your margins are very tight. And some menu items do see real spikes in cost per round. So I was bringing up the Walmart example because what these big companies do is they lock in a price. So they go to a manufacturer and say, all right, you bring us potatoes. Let's lock in this price of potatoes for the next 5 years. So no matter what happens in the potato market, we only pay $1 per potato. So even if the cost of potatoes goes up to $3, we have a 5-year contract. All right, we only got to pay $1 per potato. So big companies tend to do that to lock in their prices. So this is a point against them when they say, well, we're raising our prices because of inflation. Like, mofo, you don't have any inflation. You got a 5-year contract for a set price, but you're saying inflation. So it's kind of a lie that these companies do. And in case any of you didn't know, and big bureaucratic organizations like corporations and the government, they all tell lies to the public because they told you the truth. First of all, most people couldn't follow the truth. And secondly, most people can't handle the truth, as they say. Many corporations raise prices uniformly, even in markets where cost increase don't hit as hard, and it flattening the nuance to boost shareholder returns. Again, the whole purpose of running a business is to boost the value for shareholders. So there's this give and take. Again, you got the shareholders say, make us more money because I own shares in this business. I want to make more money, so raise the price. Where on the other side, you got the customers like, damn, y'all charging me more money. I can barely afford to pay this stuff. And then you got Bernie Sanders over here pointing this out. Now, you got him calling it out on people. But again, he picks and chooses the data that makes sense for him. He's a politician. Doesn't make him wrong. He's playing the game as the game is designed. All right, telling the truth has a cost as well. All right, remember, folks, third law of economics, there are no free lunches. Everything has a cost. Telling the truth has a cost. Telling a lie has a cost. But it ain't nothing free. So people argue that uniform pricing makes operations simpler, forecasting easier, especially across national and global chains. Generally, this is true. So if I own 10 McDonald's, I own 5 on the East Coast and 5 on the West Coast, but my costs are going up on the East Coast for whatever reason, but my costs on the West Coast are staying the same, I'm still going to raise the price of the fries on all of the stores. Even though the cost on the West Coast didn't even go up, I'm still going to raise the price on the West Coast. Why? Because it makes it easier for me to track what I'm doing and to keep things simple, to keep the prices exactly the same everywhere instead of having different prices in different markets based on the situation. Now, I'm sure I can create an algorithm that would do that for me, but why go through all that when I can just raise the prices uniformly if you're going to keep buying the fries anyway? And when it comes to McDonald's, those ain't, I don't know what those are. They ain't potatoes. Whatever's in those fries, they ain't potatoes. If I saw the documentary Supersize Me by Morgan Spurlock, he passed away a few years ago. He wasn't even that old. But y'all saw that documentary by Morgan Spurlock about McDonald's. He bought some McDonald's fries and he put them on the counter and he let them sit on the counter for 30 days. And at the end of the 30 days, the fries were still sitting there. No flies, no roaches, no disintegration, no mold, no nothing. So if they were potatoes, they would have molded. So I don't know what they are. They ain't potatoes. And they do taste good, but they ain't potatoes. So a company that increased prices by 10 to 20% have been caught admitting in earnings calls that they could have held steady, but they didn't because the market will bear it. So this is what your Bernie Sanders and AOCs will tell you, that companies know that they could have kept their prices where they were, but they raise them anyway because they believe that the market will still pay that price. This is the first law of economics, ladies and gentlemen, supply and demand. There's a thing called the supply and demand curve where you got to find the sweet spot, which is how much can I charge for this thing at the point that people will still buy it and we're making profits. Now, if you start charging too much, then the buyers go down. Now you're not making money. You charge too little. Then you're going to have too many buyers. You're not making enough. You got to find the sweet spot. And companies that's their job, is to find the sweet spot. Apple's job is to find the sweet spot. They could charge $300 for the iPhone if they wanted to, but they make more money if they charge $1,500 because people will still buy it. Does that make them wrong? I say no. It doesn't make them wrong. Even if them charging $1,500 for the iPhone prices me out of the market, I can't be mad at Apple because I can't afford the phone. I'm mad at myself because I don't have $1,500. That's the way I tend to look at life. Most people don't look at things that way. That's the way that I look at things. This is the reason why I tell you that costs are always going up. Don't expect the companies to keep costs low. That's a failing strategy. You expecting companies to keep costs low just so you can keep paying for it. No, you need to ask yourself, how do I make more money? So even as costs go up, I can still buy what the hell I want to buy. You get to the point that you're priced out of the market. That doesn't mean the market is wrong. That means you didn't do enough to make sure that you had the money to stay in the market. That's the way it works. Right? That's just what it is, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not that the costs need to come down, it's that your value needs to increase. Continuing. Some brands face investor. Can we get the 50,000 likes, please, on TikTok? We're at 46. Let's just tap the screen to get the likes up, folks. Some brands face investor pressure to keep profits rising every quarter. So pricing decisions are driven more by Wall Street than Main Street. So keeping this really simple. All of you have heard of Wall Street. If you've never actually been to Wall Street, it kind of looks and feels exactly as it looks on TV. But you should go so you can actually see it. Excuse me. And I know some people who have worked on Wall Street. A very interesting place, I'll say. So Wall Street is basically the investors who own companies. And when people own shares in a business, they want to make money on those shares, especially people who are big investors who own like a lot of a company. They want to make money on that. Think of what's my man's name from Nebraska? I'm thinking of his face, but I can't remember his name. What's that guy's name? The guy from Omaha, Nebraska. I'm forgetting his name right now. What's that guy's name? His partner is Charlie Munger. I can't remember his damn name. That guy. So anyway, that guy, the old guy with the glasses. Yeah, it's Warren Buffett. Thank you. Go ahead, Warren Buffett. So think of someone like Warren Buffett. He buys into companies because he wants to make money on the companies that he owns. So that's Wall Street. Even though he's not on Wall Street, he's part of Wall Street because the Wall Street workers, they want to make sure that certain companies make more money so that the investors stay invested in the business. Because if someone like Warren Buffett decides to divest from a business, in other words, sell his shares and not own it anymore, that's news. And that news, it goes through the entire market and people are like, oh, well, Warren Buffett doesn't want to own Coca-Cola anymore. Must be something wrong with Coca-Cola. Let me sell my Coca-Cola shares too. And the value of Coca-Cola goes down. So they want to make sure that they are pleasing their biggest investors. And that's the investor pressure. Make money. We're in a capitalistic society, ladies and gentlemen, in case any of you didn't know. And the capitalistic society, one of the byproducts of capitalism is that the dollar runs the show. People will do things for a dollar that they wouldn't do for other reasons. And people go after the dollar. And in capitalistic society, the dollar is power. The trade-off of the capitalistic society is that the dollar is power, is that people will do things for money just because the system is designed to reward those who make money. That's the way the system is designed. This is no Gordon Gekko. Greed is good. This is Jordan Belfort. All right, you can't pay your rent? Good. Get on the phone and start dialing. Your wife thinks you're a loser? Good. Get on the phone and start dialing. All right, you're driving a beat up Hyundai and you see somebody drive by in a Ferrari and you wonder why? Good. Get on the phone and start dialing. This is capitalism. That's the way it works. Is that companies need to make money. They don't want to make money. They need to make money because their owners, the shareholders, are like, yo, make us some money. So how do we make money? Okay, charge the market more money. Now the everyday person is like, damn, eggs cost more than they used to. All right, I don't have this kind of money. What am I supposed to do in this situation? That's the squeeze. All right, that's the squeeze going on to the middle class that I told you all about earlier. The middle class is getting squeezed out. In case any of you didn't hear me say that months ago, I'll probably talk about it again in the future because it's going to keep happening and more and more people are going to feel it. But this is the way it works. They are squeezing everybody out, not by design. It's not like there are some evil geniuses sitting somewhere in the office with Bill Gates saying, hey, how do we make these middle class people disappear? That's not really what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is just make money for themselves because they are driven to do that. This is a capitalistic society. It rewards making money. And in the process of doing that, the middle class is just a casualty of war. All right, you are just collateral damage if you're in the middle class. They're not trying to hurt the middle class, but if you happen to get hurt, then you just happen to get hurt. It's kind of like if you start tearing down some trees, you do some landscaping for some land that you bought and you start cutting down all the trees. Well, there are some birds who have nests in those trees and those birds' nests get destroyed. You didn't come there to destroy birds' nests, but the birds' nests get destroyed. They're collateral damage for a bigger picture idea. This is how life works. And if you don't want to be collateral damage for a bigger picture idea, then you need to be big enough that you don't become a casualty of a bigger idea that doesn't even consider that you exist. This is how it works. And it's a Machiavellian way of looking at life, but Machiavelli has some good ideas about the way life works. Well, those of you who don't know about him, his name is Niccolo Machiavelli, not Tupac. Tupac had an album called Machiavelli, but no, it's Machiavelli is his actual name. And he wrote a book called The Prince. If y'all have not read that book, Go look it up. It's called The Prince. It's by Niccolo Machiavelli. The book's not really that long. And it has some very important principles of life that were said centuries ago that still apply to this very day. And one of them is you need to understand there's a give and take of life. Some of you still operate and you get your Bernie Sanders and your AOCs of the world talking to you as if we are living an episode of Barney and Friends. That's not the way life works. And one of the things Machiavelli said, I'm paraphrasing, is those who try too hard to be good will find your undoing at the hands of people who are not good. And what that means is you got to learn how to play the game. Even though you want to be a nice person and friendly and compromising and getting along with everybody, that's great. It's a great idea. Understand you're going to run into some assholes. And if you don't know how to deal with them, then they will take advantage of you because you don't know how to defend yourself against them. All right. This is just a truth of life. And any of you who's old enough, you have experienced this to know what I'm saying. All right. We're at 50,000, folks. Thank you. Let's get to 60 before we get to the Q&A. Luxury brands. And some people mention Nike as a luxury brand. I don't know if I consider Nike luxury. Lululemon, are they luxury? I don't buy Lululemon, but I see their stores. But luxury brands, and other brands, let's say Nike, Lululemon, Apple, they keep pushing prices higher because it makes the brand feel more exclusive, not because costs demand it. Is this part of the game? Yes, it is. It's part of the game that the costs are higher as a way of positioning themselves in the market. Apple, again, they could charge $300 for the phone, but then it'd be a $300 phone. It wouldn't be what it is if the phone costs $300. The same way a Rolls Royce wouldn't be what it is if they charge the same amount as a smart car for the Rolls Royce. The Rolls Royce is what it is because they want to set themselves aside as an exclusive brand. And therefore, they have to position themselves a certain way in the marketplace so that people know, okay, if you have one of these, that means you're in this group up here. This is not for everybody. This is for the people who are in this group up here. And that's called pricing strategy, by the way, those of you who didn't know. And there's a strategy behind pricing yourself a certain way as a way of sending a signal to the marketplace. Here's who I'm for. Here's who I'm not for. And here's what it says about you if you are willing and able to buy this. That's what Rolls Royce does. Or you think of any luxury brand, that's exactly what they're doing. You think of Gucci or Louis Vuitton and fashion brands. They price themselves a certain way, not because it costs so much money to make their products. It does cost more because they make higher quality products, but not that much more. They price themselves in that way because they want to have a certain audience and they want to keep everybody else out. So down here in South Florida, there's this place called Bal Harbour. I don't know if any of you heard of Bal Harbour. Bal Harbour is it's technically in Miami Beach. So if you get into Miami Beach and you drive up past North Beach, on the way up towards, you're almost in Aventura. So it's right in between, what do they call that place? I think they call it North Shore Beach. I can't remember what they call that beach around that area, around 95th Street. So it's around North Shore Beach. Then there's Aventura. And in between the two, you got Bal Harbour. Bal Harbour is a very small area. But Bal Harbour has a mall. And it's actually not even a mall. It's called the Shops. It's called the Shops of Bal Harbour. Now, all of you have been to the mall before, right? At Bal Harbour Shops, you can't even park for free. You got to pay to park in the parking lot outside at Bal Harbour. And then after you park in the parking lot, all the shops are high-end luxury type of shops. All of them. Everything's high-end luxury shops. Ain't nothing cheap in there except maybe, you maybe get a coffee for $12, something like that in Bal Harbour. Now, why does Bal Harbour set itself up that way? Because they want to keep a certain demographic of people out of there, and they want to bring a certain demographic of people in there, and they want to send a signal to the entire world that we have these type of people who come in here, and those type of people stay out there. And they do all that without telling you. The only way they get that point across is by simply setting their prices the way they set their prices. That's a marketing strategy. It's called pricing strategy. So any of you who sells anything, this is the way that you do it. And the trade-off of pricing yourself in such a way, like I'm describing Bal Harbour, is that you deal with fewer people, but you make higher profits. Fewer people, higher profit margin. You want to see the opposite of this? Look at a company like Walmart. Walmart is open to everybody. Anybody can go on Walmart. Any of you could afford anything in Walmart, even if you're broke. You can buy something in Walmart. There's something in there you can buy. The trade-off of that is that everybody goes to Walmart. Now, you ever see any parody videos or pictures, or used to be blogs back in the day that would make fun of the people of Walmart, and there'd be a bunch of broken down looking people inside of Walmart. Why? Because Walmart advertises, they market themselves that we're open to everybody. And when you're open to everybody, you get everybody. And when you say we only want a certain type of person without saying it, you get a certain type of person without saying it. And there are neighborhoods in the United States that are designed the exact same way. So all that being said, folks, just a matter of how you want to live. That's really what it comes down to. And also how you want to run your business when we talk about this whole greedflation concept. So what I am going to do right now is run to the restroom. And what I'm going to do while you all wait for me, this is going to take me 90 seconds. I'm going to play a little bit of an episode from my Work on Your Game masterclass. You must know people in these spaces. This is part 3 of 3, episode number 3289. You must know people in certain spaces. I gave you a list over 3 episodes of the type of people you need to know in all different types of spaces in your life so that you can get along and operate as best as you want to operate. And I'll let you listen to a little bit of this. Give me 90 seconds. Let me take a quick restroom break, and then we will get to the Q&A coming up in a second. Venue, a physical location he could use for his boxing gym in the ghetto, in the hood where he came from. And he then was told that he was going to have to get some permits and some documentation to make his whole situation legal. So he goes to the downtown offices to get all the paperwork that he needs so that he can make sure he has all the right permits, etc., to run his boxing gym business. And when he goes to the downtown offices, the clerks who work at the office, they start handing him a stack of paperwork. You got to get all these things filled out and notarized. You got to pay this and that. You got to do all these things in order to open up your facility. He's looking at the stack of papers like, this ain't going to work. So he goes to a guy that he has come to know who is a church pastor. The church pastor kind of knows everybody everywhere. Church pastor is a good person to know. He's not on my list here today, but he's a good person. Religious leader is a good person to know because they know everything's going on in their community. So this guy, Cuddy, who is not liking how it's looking, how he's going to open his boxing gym, he goes to the church pastor and tells him, hey, things didn't go quite how I thought they were going to go when I went downtown. Church pastor says, well, I know somebody who could possibly help you. So the church pastor walks Cuddy to another downtown office where he meets with a local congressman or senator. I think the guy was a congressman, or maybe he might have been a city councilman. Whoever he is, he's a politician who is an elected official, and elected officials know everybody in the city. So Cuddy gets introduced to this guy in town, and the church pastor says, hey, Cuddy here is trying to open a gym, and he went to the downtown office and didn't go the way he thought it was going to go. And the city councilman smiles and looks at Cuddy, and he says, well, did you use my name? And Cuddy, he's looking at the guy like he doesn't understand what he means. What do you mean I use your name? And the guy just laughs and he says, look, he grabs one of his business cards and he scribbles something on the back of the card and he says, go back to those same offices tomorrow and hand them this and see how things go then. And then it's the HBO show. So then you get the cutaway. And the next scene you see, Cuddy is standing inside of his gym facility and it's open and he's got a bunch of kids in there learning how to box. Long story short, because he knew the right person, he was able to cut through all that red tape bullshit and get done what he needed to get done. This is what happens when you know people in the government. All right, so that is a little snippet of my everyday podcast. It is called Work on Your Game. I actually call mine a masterclass, but I'm using the word podcast so y'all know what I'm talking about. That comes out every single day. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. The episodes are about 20 to 30 minutes each. So you can listen to it on your commute every morning or while you're working out or while you're getting ready for the day. Make it part of your daily routine. So if you can't always catch these live streams or you don't always have this kind of time to catch the live streams, you can always catch the Work on Your Game masterclass. On top of that, all the recordings. We got 3,000 episodes there. You can go back. Basically, anything you hear me say on these live streams, I've gone into depth on these subjects on my podcast. So let's see what we got going on in the comments here. By the way, make sure we keep tapping the screen. Let's get to 100,000 likes here today on TikTok, but I'll give you all baby steps. Let's get to 70,000. We're at 60,000 right now. Can we get to 70,000 likes on the stream on TikTok, please? 70,000 likes is what I'm asking for. We want to get to 70,000 likes on TikTok. So let's see what we got. Zawata reminder. You told me you mentioned the iPhone 17 probably coming out in September. All right, so I'll wait for the iPhone 17. So iPhone 17, I think I'm going to start planning on getting the iPhone 17. And iPhone 16 is $1,500. So how much I think the iPhone 17 is going to be? Probably 16, 1,700 probably. Price is going to keep going up, everybody. In case any of you didn't know, that's just how it works. The prices will just keep going up. So let's see where we are in the comments. Marcy Minshew, good morning, checking in from North Carolina. And by the way, I'm reading the comments from the top, by the way. So every day when I'm doing these, I get people saying, he's not reading the comments. Is this AI? Is this a recording? I am reading the comments. I'm reading the oldest comments to the newest comments. All right, Foster checking in from Texas. Have a good dang day. Yeah, that is some Texas slang right there. Lawrence McKinnis, good morning. Marky Man, good morning. Y'all been following this P. Diddy trial? The prosecution's case is looking weak right now. I will tell y'all that. Official Dr. Mel said, well, if that's the case, then no one should pay taxes, right? If what's the case? Gina said, but you don't want to address the corruption. We all cannot afford to cheat on our taxes. Well, so y'all talking about the Donald Trump not paying taxes? Well, it depends. Do you understand the tax code, and or do you have an accountant who understands the tax code, and or is your financial situation set up to which you can take advantage of the tax code? If you can answer yes to all three of those questions, then you would reduce the amount of taxes you pay by as much as possible, which is what Donald Trump did. He didn't do anything illegal. He didn't cheat the system. All he did was operate the system the way it's designed to be operated. That's the way it works. He can operate in the system the way it's designed. The tax code gives tax breaks to business owners because business owners create jobs. And jobs create employees, and employees get taxed off the top before you get a chance to see your own money. You get your tax taken out of your check before you even get the money. And the government loves that because they get first dibs on your money. So if you want to be in a position where you can, quote unquote, cheat, as some of you say about Donald Trump, you need to start a business. So you have more options when it comes to taxes. If you have a job and that's your only source of income, then you don't have as many options because, again, the government takes your money right off the top. You have no say in the conversation. That's the way it works. Again, I didn't make the system. I'm just telling you what it is. I'll tell you all a funny story about that. I've told it before, but I'll tell it again. Maybe after I get through these comments, if there's space. But Heck says there's a lot of resentment of those who have. People feel entitled. Be happy with what you have. Yes, well, if we can get rid of entitlement, the world would be a completely different place. Heck, you're right. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Can we get up to 70,000 likes, please? Thank you for the gifts over there on TikTok. I've seen a few of you, Irma, I saw, and whoever just gave that jalapeno, whatever that was. Gina said, lack of empathy does not make you powerful. That's a false frame. That's the straw man of the day right there. So Gina Queen 376. I don't know if you're new around here, but we got this thing that we call the straw man of the day. You had just received the straw man of the day because you offered the first straw man argument that I can see in the comments. It might not be the only, but it was the first one. And you're saying that lack of empathy does not make you powerful. Deciding that you are going to take advantage of the tax code to pay as little in taxes as possible so that you can keep your own money in your pocket is not a lack of empathy. That, to me, sounds like intelligence. But if you disagree, that's fine. But what you offered there is a straw man because you are submitting that a person who is trying to keep their own money is not empathetic. And you're also submitting that this person is not powerful based on, powerful wasn't even brought up here. This is a straw man. You're creating an argument that wasn't said and fighting against it. Officially, Dr. Mel said either everybody pays equitably or nobody pays taxes. It's total infrastructure. No, I don't agree. DND said, except there is no reward without the workers. What do you mean? What reward are you referring to? We're at 66,000 likes, folks. Can we get to 70? I'm like an auctioneer. Can we get to 70, please? Carlos, I had to drive to orchestra practice. Can someone keep the working your game comment pinned? Thanks. Carlos, I think people dropped the ball on that. Traditional, and thank you for asking. Traditional said you always studied Ben Franklin. If you go to Philadelphia, which is my hometown, by the way, if you go to Philadelphia and you go down to the downtown area where they have the Liberty Bell and they have all this historic colonial stuff, you can see the frame of where Ben Franklin's house was, as a matter of fact, on Market Street. There's like a Ben Franklin impersonator. So you know how they had people who impersonate Elvis, so they got one for Ben Franklin. And it's his full-time job. He just walks around impersonating Ben Franklin, and he gives you like a tour of the town and tells you what it was like back then, and here's how it was, and here's where he had his meetings and all this stuff. So Ben Franklin was one of the first people to create the mastermind. So Napoleon Hill gets a lot of credit for the mastermind concept, but Ben Franklin created a mastermind before Napoleon Hill. He didn't call it a mastermind. He called it a junto. But it was where he would get a bunch of people who are quality men and they would get together and just talk about stuff. Who else should we know? What's going on in town? What are some problems you're dealing with? And he had all these, it was like this long questionnaire you had to answer just to even get into the group. But Ben Franklin was doing that in the 1700s. Tuesday, September 9th is the iPhone 17. How do y'all know this stuff? Steph said Apple needs a stronger competitor. Yeah, if they did, their prices would go down, but they don't have one. So they're going to keep squeezing as they can. Stay in your lane. Say, glad I kept coming back to this live. I used to get offended, but you challenged my way of thinking. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And some people get offended by the things that I say, and they don't take it as a challenge. They take it as offense, and then they leave. But I'm glad you stuck around. That's a reflection of your mental toughness. Joe Byron says about 60 to 75. Okay, I got it. For the movies. That's the movies question. So $70 to go to the movies. That's a lot. User said housing prices are crazy compared to average income now. Yes, I've heard about that too in different places. Stacey D said movies we don't go. Hollywood is weird. Not giving them my money. Fair enough. Trap running wild. Who's Terry? Who's that person you're mentioning? Cabbage soup diet? I never heard of that one. Never heard of cabbage soup diet. James Collins, good morning. We're at 70,000 likes, folks. Can we get to 75, please? Traditional said Ozempic. Yeah, now, see, the thing about Ozempic is now people will pop up out of nowhere having lost like 50 pounds, and then they claim that they did it in the gym, and then other people are saying there's Ozempic. How do we know? All right, nothing's real these days. That's the problem. Nothing's real. James said go on a major calorie deficit. Yeah, well, that's the same thing. Official Dr. Mel said, preach, Dre. Yes, thank you. Vivian Philly Cuban said, you are so right. Thank you. Tristan said, I bet Walmart will. Will what? Heck said, as a constant dieter, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, well, that's the reality of how it is. Z said, we're over here, man. Over where? Robert said, you don't want to accept Trump committed espionage. Well, I haven't heard anyone make the case. Actually, I've heard people make cases about anything negative involving Trump. Actually, I have heard it, so you don't have to repeat it. Robert said, Target lost money due to their DEI policies being canceled. Well, their sales went down. They didn't necessarily lose money. Their sales just went down. They're still making money. They didn't lose money. They're just making less. I get what you're saying, though. I did hear about that. I don't think it's just because of DEI. It's a bunch of factors that go into it. A lot of people try to take multivariate issues and make them about one single variant, but it's about multiple things. Target's profits went down, indeed, but everyone's saying, oh, it went down because of DEI. So you're confusing correlation with causation. But there are several different factors that cause their profits to go down. Not just, oh, they eliminated DEI, so their prices, their costs, their profits, went down. If it was that simple, and I guess let's say a bunch of annoyed black people can have that much of an effect. That's what annoyed black people are able to achieve, getting Target's profits to go down. That's the best thing you can come up with. If it's that simple for black people to organize together, quote unquote, together, and make something happen, then how about black people go get reparations? If people have been talking about reparations for years. So all of a sudden people organize for Target. It sounds good, but it doesn't make sense. Traditional said there's always going to be competition. Well, for some, there's always going to be competition. Wifey Tip said, let's go tap the screen and claim your points. Yes, tap the screen, folks. We're at 73,000. Can we get to 75, please? Let's see. Stay in your lane. Said, how do want to protect their business from a Walmart or a big corporation? Well, you got to have a strong enough relationship with your customers so that Walmart can't steal your customers. So if Walmart decides to, anytime Walmart tries to build a store in an area where there are other small businesses, a bunch of the small businesses band together, or community activists band together and try to block that Walmart from coming into town. So, for example, in Miami, in Midtown Miami, there's this big space that has been completely empty for like 15 years in Midtown Miami. Any of you who lives in Miami know the space I'm talking about. So if you go to the Midtown area, there's a big Target there. There is, what else is there? There's just a whole bunch of shops. Target, there's a bunch of housing around there. There's this big landmass that's super big that has been empty for 15 years, literally empty. And Walmart wanted to open a store there. They were going to put a super Walmart. It's big enough for a super Walmart, not one of those little Walmarts, a super Walmart. They were going to put it right there. And a bunch of community activists fought to keep Walmart from building in that location, and they succeeded. And that space is still empty to this very day. That space has been empty for literally 15 years. And it is a great business opportunity if somebody would get control of the land. OK Wire Concepts, good morning over there on Instagram. So one way you can protect yourself from Walmart is to block them from even building in the first place. Because what Walmart does is that they steal a whole bunch of customers from local small businesses. And people who live in the area or work in the area don't want Walmart in there. for that reason, on top of the fact that a Walmart store has a reputation for bringing a certain element of people around it. You build a Walmart somewhere, it kind of cheapens the area. That's pretty much what it cheapens the area when you build a Walmart, because Walmart is cheap, everyday low prices. And when you advertise cheap, 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 you bring a whole bunch of cheap people around. You bring a certain element of people around that people who live in that neighborhood don't want. We don't want the kind of people who shop at Walmart or hang around a Walmart area to be in our neighborhood. Don't build a Walmart here, because this area that I'm referring to, there's high-end housing in this area, mostly condominiums and apartments, but these places are not cheap. And they're like, I'm going to live next to a Walmart. I want a Walmart across the street from here. All right, I paid this much money to live across the street from a Walmart? Hell no. So a lot of people just don't want Walmart in there for several reasons. And Walmart just has a lot of enemies. So because of who they are, because of all the enemies they have, you can build up an argument against a Walmart landing in your city, even if Walmart's willing to pay a lot of money to get in there. And Walmart tried to pay a lot of money to get into Miami, and Miami blocked that shit. And people in Miami blocked it, to be more specific. Traditional said, I like to see eggs drop back down to $3. Well, I hope so. Britt said, I quit eating McDonald's and ate it randomly. I felt like shit for 3 days, won't touch it again. I haven't eaten McDonald's in a long time. I used to work at McDonald's, but shout out to McDonald's. James said, McDonald's puts so much love into their fries that they don't spoil. Yeah, that must be the reason why nothing happens to them. MH said, anything that comes from McDonald's is a scientific experiment. Pretty much. Traditional said, I worked on Wall Street years ago. Yeah, Wall Street's a pretty place. A nice place to walk on a nice day. I don't know if I want to work there, though. Tara said, it is by design. And KJ Tao said, you'll have to find someone else to follow. And you'll have to find someone else to follow. I don't know what you're referring to. None of your business said, way to talk white buddy. What does that even mean? I don't know what you're referring to here. Britt said 2-for-1 deals on iPhone, but companies bought both for a fraction of the $1,200 to $1,700 they sell for one. Who has a 2-for-1 deal on iPhone? I never heard of that. Irma V, thank you for the rose. James said, I gave up on the iPhone after Model 8. Way too expensive for a damn phone. Yeah, so then what'd you go to? Well, you got the Android? I'm thinking there's only 2 options these days, right? Or is there another one I don't know about? Didn't Google try to have a phone? There was a Google phone for a minute. That didn't work, so I guess they pivoted to doing the Android thing. George said, fast food is trash. Pretty much, yes. All right, so a couple things I'll tell you all. AT&T, Verizon offer 2-for-1 deals on new iPhones. Oh, I didn't know that. I usually get my phone straight from Apple. I just went to the Apple website, even though my provider is, who do I have now? I think I got T-Mobile. I used to have Sprint, but then I think Sprint got bought by T-Mobile. So now now I pay my bill to T-Mobile. But even when I get a new phone, I don't do it through the phone company because I don't like doing things through third parties. And the phone company is just a third party. And I don't want them offering me to extend the contract. I don't want to get under any contracts. I want to be completely free to drop them whenever I want. And I like buying my phone outright. I don't do the rent the phone and iPhone for life or any of that. I just buy the phone. So if it's $1,500, I just pay $1,500, get the phone. I get 2 phones, and then I keep the phone that I use now, and I use this I'll use this phone as a camera. So right now I got an iPhone 11 that I use as a camera. Now this iPhone 13, when I get the new iPhone, I'm going to use this one as a camera, and I'll just have more cameras. So that's how I strategically do it. Google Pixel. Okay, is that what it's called? Google Pixel. So anyway, this P. Diddy case is not looking too good for the feds. We'll talk about this for now. I'm going to do a whole nother live on this. Probably, we'll see as more witness testimony happens. But this P. Diddy case ain't looking good for the feds. This whole thing is supposed to be a RICO case, meaning racketeering, and there's supposed to be some type of conspiracy. And the co-conspirator in the case is Cassie, who was Diddy's ex-girlfriend. That's the girl who y'all saw the video of him beating her ass in a hotel when she was trying to get on the elevator and run away from one of those freak-off parties. She's the co-conspirator. She's the only one co-conspirating. She has immunity from the feds. She already got $20 million from Diddy. She already got $10 million from the Intercontinental Hotel. Her testimony is over. And from what she shared in her testimony, that ain't enough to prove that he was running some kind of criminal enterprise known as Combs Enterprise or whatever they say the name of his company is. Bad Boy and all of that. I'm not liking this case for the feds. This ain't looking too good for the feds. However, it seems as if they're doing the same thing they did to every other man who got taken down in this way. You had Bill Cosby, you had Weinstein, you had R. Kelly, and you've had many others. And the whole thing is that all they're doing is defaming his character. They're just going to besmirch his character and destroy his name, his public reputation, and hopefully that will be enough to get a conviction because he's such a bad guy. Then of course you got to say guilty to the charges, but the charges are not being a bad guy. He's not on trial for being a bad guy. And that's the problem with this case. And it looks like if Cassie was a star witness, which she was the main, most important witness in the case was Cassie. She's already done testifying. If that's the best that they have, then this case is looking weak as far as I'm concerned. That does not mean that Diddy's going to win. Doesn't mean he might not still get convicted. But I think that leads to a sad state of affairs, is that if you could just make someone look like a bad guy, then you can get them convicted, even though the charges in the case don't even make sense. And this is what, by the way, Candace Owens is doing a deep dive on Harvey Weinstein right now. And you get that she's gone over the case and talked about it. And the things that I heard, if what she said is true, then how the hell did he get convicted? It didn't make any sense. And now she's going to talk to him directly and see what he has to say. But this is what happens when a man gets to a certain position, has a certain amount of power, and they can get anything on you. And here's the thing that I would tell men. I talked about this when we did the Shannon Sharp thing a few weeks ago. Shannon Sharp, the ESPN guy who got caught up with some OnlyFans white girl who's like 19 and he's like 50 something, is that the way that they get all men is when you get loose with your reproductive organ. That's how they get all of them. That's how they got Bill Cosby. That's how they got Weinstein. That's how they got R. Kelly. That's how they're trying to get the Romanian guy, the guy in Romania who's a kickboxer. And that's how they are going to try to get P. Diddy, by sex. The main thing they use to bring down a man, if they need to get you, is they use sex. They use your sexual things you've done wrong sexually. They try to use it against you. That's what they do. Tara said the whole Diddy trial is a show for us. Yeah, it was not a show for him. No, his life is on the line. Carlos said exactly. I've seen nothing that says Rico. Yeah, no, they had to prove they had to prove two underlying crimes were happening in the process. So they got the arson thing, which they didn't prove. They had Kid Cudi on the stand. And he said somebody set fire to his car, but he doesn't have any proof of who did it. And they have no proof of how it happened or who did it. They can't put that on Diddy. And then they have the trafficking and all that stuff. And they did travel, that Diddy and Cassie were traveling, but she was his girlfriend and loved him at the same time that they were traveling. So is that trafficking? And then they would hire males to come in there, males who are available for sex. They would hire these men to come in and have sex with Cassie and all the stuff they were doing. We talked about this already, but they weren't bringing them with them from one state to another. They would just get to Miami, hire a guy in Miami, get to LA, hire some guy in LA, get to New York, hire somebody in New York. So that's not across state lines trafficking. I don't think they have much. This case ain't looking too good for the Feds so far. They still have more witnesses, but this ain't looking like much as far as I'm concerned. James said the case just started. It will get more damaging as the weeks progress. Well, with who? Who's their witnesses? They got to bring some witnesses that can make Puff look bad. And who are they? And Cassie was their best witness. If she's their best witness, that means it only goes downhill from here. Who else they got? They just bought Kid Cudi. He was the guy who his car got set on fire, allegedly by Diddy. But there was nothing in his testimony that proved Diddy did it. Because when he and Diddy met up after things cooled off, Kid Cudi said, "What about my car? They got set on fire." And he said, he testified, Diddy replied to that, "I don't know what you're talking about." Kid Cudi ain't have no proof of anything. And that was the end of the conversation. So can you convict somebody on that? You can't say that he committed arson and set the car on fire. You ain't got none. That was the testimony right there. It was done. So what do you do? Yeah, and Kid Cudi's testimony didn't pin anything on Diddy when it came to arson. It didn't even allege, it alluded to, because Diddy was mad. Diddy had broken into the house. Diddy did this and did that. But do you have any proof that he set fire to the car? There's no proof. They got away with that one, it looks like, as far as I'm concerned. So that case ain't looking too good. That's what I'm saying. And he might still get convicted just because they're trashing his name so much. He might still get convicted. So time will tell, but this case is looking very weak for the Feds so far. I'm going to write an article about this. I already wrote the article. I'm going to put the article out via email today, as a matter of fact. Oh, by the way, as well, this morning, I'm going to be recording with Jason Whitlock. Y'all know Jason Whitlock? I'm going to be recording with Jason on his show, which is called Fearless. I'm going to be recording at 11 o'clock. I don't know if this is coming out. I don't know if it's coming live. I think they just record it. I think that because his executive producer emailed me this morning. I've been on the show before, but his executive producer emailed me, editorial producer, emailed me this morning asking me if I would be on the show. The topic is the Great Black Hoax, is systemic racism a scam? So that's the topic. And that'll be at 11 o'clock. We're going to be on Zoom. So I don't know if this is going to be live or they're just going to record it and put it out later. So don't hold me to it being live. But Jason does put his show out. He does live stream it. So I don't know if it's going to be live or not. But anyway, I will be on the Whitlock show called Fearless this morning at 11 o'clock. It's 9:30 right now. So I will be on that show today. It's a panel discussion. I don't know who else is going to be on the panel, but I know Jason will be there. I'll be there. I don't know who his other guests will be. Maybe it's somebody I know of and haven't met before, so that'll be cool. So anyway, that will be happening later on today. As for these live streams, I do these Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. We got a few topics on the docket that need to be addressed. We're going to talk about this Diddy case. I might do that early next week, depending on how much time we have or what happens over the weekend. We're still going to talk about this conflation of black people and brown people and the LGBTQ people as if it's one big group. It is not one big group. And I don't know if we're going to talk about the Derek Chauvin thing. That thing was a story for like a day or two, then it kind of disappeared. So I don't know if we're going to even talk about that one. I might just leave that one out. That one may end up on the cutting room floor. And then we'll just see what else happens. Someone's asking about Trump's big, beautiful bill. I might talk about that. I got to see more about it, see if it's worth anything. It was worth talking about. And a lot of people were talking about this Kid Cudi testimony yesterday. But again, it wasn't really much in it. As far as I'm concerned, it wasn't much in it. It was interesting because of Kid Cudi, because it's him, but he didn't say nothing. Not much. Britt said, would it be trespassing when Diddy went in the house? Doesn't mean much, but he did go in the house. Well, they didn't prove that he went in the house. So Kid Cudi's testimony says that when Cassie called Kid Cudi and said, Diddy is at your house, because Diddy was mad that she was dating Kid Cudi, allegedly. And then when Kid Cudi got to the house, that his dog was put in the bathroom and there were some gifts that he had out and the gifts had been opened. But there was no proof that Diddy had actually entered the house. There's no proof that Diddy had done anything. It's just he's alluding to it, to connect it, that this happened and this happened. So he's correlating, but he didn't offer any proof that it happened. So again, this is just besmirching his character. So they're just trying to make it look like they're just alluding to so many things that is like, okay, it's obvious that Diddy probably has something to do with the car, something to do with the house getting broken into, even though we don't have hard proof that he did it. And again, this is what they're trying to build the case off of. And it might be enough. It might be enough, even though they don't have any hard proof. If Diddy's lawyers are any good, and they should be, because he's probably spent $50 million on this case alone, Diddy, $50 million on defense. If his lawyers are worth their weight in dollars, they should be able to go to work on this. They should be able to run wild with this nonsense. This is not beyond a reasonable doubt at all. It's not even close. So that's what it's looking like as far as I'm concerned. But I'm not the jury. So the jurors might be thinking differently. But the point of a trial, especially a criminal trial, is that you must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person committed these crimes. So far, they have not proven anything except that this guy is a sexual, what do you want to call this guy? Sexual, what's the word? He's out there sexually. Let's just say that. Puffy is all over the place when it comes to what he likes and what he's into sexually. And you could say he was a bad boyfriend if you want to call him that. But other than that, yeah, deviant, that's the word. Sexual deviant. And other than that, that ain't a crime. Sexual deviance is not a crime. So what do they have? Tara says serial deviant. All right, you even go that far. That ain't a crime neither. They ain't got nothing. So right now, they can't convict this guy. Belfort said, Dre, it's sad that I want you to make all the money in the world, but I don't want you to be famous. You not being famous is the superpower. The more famous people get, the less sense they start to make. Well, it depends on how they get famous, Belfort. Depends on how they get famous. You get famous because you go from not being mainstream to connecting with the mainstream, then you may tailor your message because of who is pulling the strings. But if you become known by staying on the, let's say, the quote unquote independent route, then it's different. You do it in a grassroots way. So the grassroots way is another way of doing it. It's harder and it may take more time because you had to do it more organically. Whereas the official way, not even official, what's the word? The mainstream way, is that somebody can push a couple buttons and all of a sudden you go from 20,000 to 2 million in like a week. So I value your content. Been watching you for several years, and I thank you for your contribution, consistency, and work over the years. Well, you're welcome. I'm glad you value it. Glad you're getting value out of it. So I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Usually we go no further than 10 a.m. We're going to wrap this one up right now. We did get to 88,000 likes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to my moderators who've been in here. China in here. Traditional all day in here. Carla, Indiana in here. I think I saw Dolly, MAK in here as well. Thank you, all of you who have been moderating, keeping things going. I'm still trying to figure out on TikTok because they have all these other bells and whistles as far as putting like contact forms and what's the other things they have. I saw a contact form in here. There was a form people could fill out and links people could get on and a way to encourage people to send DMs. And it was all these things I was looking at earlier today. Before I started this live, I don't see many of them in here. So I don't know. Maybe it's something I'm missing. TikTok has a lot of bells and whistles when it comes to the live. There's so many buttons that, maybe I just haven't figured it out yet. Or maybe I don't have access to it yet. There's a couple of things you got to have 100,000 followers to do on TikTok. It's like one other thing. It's like live rewards, something they have. You got to have 100,000 followers. I got all the other things. They show you the check boxes. I got all of them except one, which is 100,000 followers. Right now, I only got like 16. So Dolly said, I think it's for subscribers. Yeah, I gotta look at it again because I was doing a test live to see where it was. I didn't see it there, so I gotta look at it again. But TikTok has so much stuff on the back end, it gets confusing. It's like Facebook ads, all the extra stuff they got back there. But anyway, folks, let's wrap this one up. I will see you all Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Topic to be determined. We might talk about P. Diddy. We might talk about something else. We'll see what happens between now and then. Everybody have a great Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com or click the link in my bio. You want to work with me directly. You want to get access to, you want to get one of my books for free. We do ship out books for free. We just ask that you cover the shipping. Go to the link in my profile on whatever app you're watching me on, and you can get access to my chat bot called Dre GPT, get access to my coaching called Work on Your Game University, and get any of my books, not any of my books, but a lot of our books we give away for free. We just ask that you cover the shipping. Go to the link in my profile. You can get access to all of that stuff. The replay to this will be on my YouTube channel. I'm live on YouTube right now. And other than that, you can find me on X at Dre All Day, conversing with people, arguing with people, and going back and forth with people over current events and social issues. That's the only place that I do that. That is on X at Dre All Day. And yes, we hit 90,000 likes here today. Thank you, everybody. I will see you all. What's going on, Michelle? Good morning. I'll see you all Monday morning. We are out of here. Have a great weekend.